Okay, then sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's great that so many of you have come. I would have never expected this, to be honest. During the semester break, short notice, and during the day, what was easy. That's absolutely great. I'm very, very happy. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, of course, I didn't think that there would be many things that we really prepared for the presentation. But so, and Marcus will talk about his current main research. So I don't need to present this at least. Marcus is he studied in Moscow, as mentioned. He studied most of his study actually in literature and Sanskrit as a second master he developed while he was studying. And then he wrote his PhD on
Sanskrit Dhatupathas?
Sanskrit Dhatupathas, like the study of the lists, the observable roots. And basically, as far as I could follow what he was doing afterwards, it was always since then sort of lexicographical studies, so perhaps you also do it in this way. But of course, Marcus, I attended a couple of your talks, which were usually on the kind of study of, say, meanings of specific words, and then how these meanings are in different dictionaries, and then how these meanings are found in the literature and stuff like that. So, lexicographic interest. And so, what Marx's has been, I actually even have in my collection. So, one of these Marx's has actually, apart from his kind of usual academic work, he has been extremely active in Russian-speaking Sanskrit
community.
World of Sanskrit enthusiasts, which is a real celebrity of Russian Sanskrit. So among other things, he has founded this publishing house. I don't know when.
Like 2011.
So okay, well, I have, for example, in my modest collection of Russian books on Sanskrit, there are only 2 books.
And there are 2 more to show.
Apparently, I mean, I bought these books before I met Marcus and before I was
the bigger one.
It's fresh. It's fresh dictionary. Sanskrit, English, Czech, Russian dictionary.
You see, so I think I bought it just out of, honestly speaking, I bought it just out of my love for books.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think he started the publishing house started mainly with this.
This was the first one. Yes.
Reprints of old publications.
Right.
Whereas now you are actually publishing
new work on Sanskrit
books, translations from Sanskrit into Russian, some other things.
Right.
And also Marx's has this, that's the word I didn't know before.
Zealot, Sanskrit Zealot Society.
This is basically a sort of an online school for, again, to teach Sanskrit to Sanskrit
Russian-speaking students.
And it has actually a kind of a very broad wide
audience
range of courses. It starts, of course, with just introduction to Sanskrit, and it has a lot of other things, ranging from, I don't know, just chanting up to actually advanced courses, commentaries, Sanskrit commentaries, and things like this on online, and many other things. I think courses that are definitely, there's no question about that, are quite like the courses that we teach at our university. So, anyway, but Marx's was, of course, I mean, another sort of volunteering act of Marx's was his work on, like I say, a bigger subject of Sanskrit computation linguistics. One of the aspects of which is, I think, something that, okay, just that's why we thought that it would be great if you could talk about this, is, I think, a site or a resource that definitely all of us have at some point in our Sanskrit lives have certainly used, namely this Cologne Sanskrit dictionary. When I was a student, it was the only site that actually existed by that time, so I was always using that. I actually don't use it so much anymore, but maybe after you talk, I don't realize a lot of stuff that I'm missing out on. And Marx's is now here on the way to Orwell, where there is the Sanskrit Computation Linguistics
Conference.
And I think what we are now getting a glimpse at is actually the topic you will present there.
Exactly.
So I'm very lucky we don't need to go to India, we can just sit here.
For next 2
and
weeks, you
enjoy.
don't have to. You can go after.
We can go after once you get. Anyway, welcome artists. It's really great that you could come, that you found time, that this opportunity occurred.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and if anyone of you want to have a look at these books, please, this is what it is.
Great. Ich danke Sie, dass Sie hier gekommen sind. Und let me introduce myself. So I studied Sanskrit for a few years, as Andrew already said, like 20 years from now, 20 years I believe. So indeed, initially I was more like a book printer. So Marsis is the name and Gasuns is a surname, which means I come from Latvia. And for the last 20 years I've been living in Russia, studying in Moscow. And since last 13 years I've been doing book printing. One of the last and most beautiful book covers I have is like this one, which is on Nirukta kind of things in Russian language, which means I sometimes print not only books on Sanskrit but on Russian as well. But lately, I mean, since like 2007, I've been in developing digital lexicography works, not only Sanskrit Russian, but I've printed a few of them, Sanskrit Russian books, but also the fully digital aspect of the Sanskrit dictionaries. So I'm kinda academical guy, which means that I've been going to the Moscow State University for like 2 years, studying Sanskrit under Andrei Zalizniak, who was my scientific tutor. So he was my guide in my PhD years in Moscow's linguistic institute, which is the Russian Academy of Science. So in 2014 I finished my PhD work, and now I am fully in this digital world. So I believe that students need printed books to learn Sanskrit, and that they need digital resources to be quick enough on the other side. So you have to unite the best of the two worlds, actually. You cannot be only digital, and you can't ignore the digital world anymore anyway. So since 2007, I've been diving into what is a digital dictionary. And so in 2004, in Moscow, there was a World Oriental Conference in 2004, and I saw in 2004 that the way people treat paper dictionaries is somehow outdated. So they write some notes on their pages, they find mistakes, they document them, but nobody's ever aware of what they actually find. So I've seen stories that people die, their libraries like fade away with all their notes, and it's like hundreds of years knowledge like fading away every like 10-20 years, and I've seen it so many times. And that 2004 was the first day I realized that it's just fading away, and it should not be that way. And then I started thinking about how can I change the way we actually work with the dictionaries. And I realized that the best and the biggest place, the original source of all Sanskrit dictionaries on the internet is the Cologne. But the sad fact was, I realized that although the name is big and the work done is huge, but they are actually out of people. Like, they don't have nobody to actually volunteer for what's going on. So I am from the field of linguistics. I want to do Sanskrit computational linguistics, and I believe that as Russia is the place where the biggest Sanskrit dictionaries in the world have been printed, and Russia should be the new center of Sanskrit studies in the world and the Sanskrit lexicography studies as well. So in India in 1974 there was the idea they'll surpass the Bertling dictionaries. It was in 1974. So in 2019 I visited Pune Deccan College to find out how far they are. So time has passed and I believe that something good is happening there. So the story is that 50 years after, they are in the middle of the letter A, which means it will take 2,800 years just to finish where they are. That means they'll never finish. So in India, nobody cares if something will be finished. And that's not quite a German approach. So the German approach is like when you have Meyerhofer, he does 2 dictionaries, he starts and finishes in his lifetime. In India approach is like you start something, you're never sure if you want to finish it. So that's the difference. So I would want really to bring together this German approach and the Indian approach. So the Indian broadness and the German idea of finishing things. So where does it all start? The godfather of digital Sanskrit dictionaries is Jim Funderburg. So on his GitHub page, half of what he's done is available for everyone. It's open. He is the man behind everything on the internet related to Sanskrit, but he remains like, I would say, unrecognized because he's a mathematician. He's not a Sanskrit scholar. Anyway, he's the one you should know if you want to know what's happening in the world of digital lexicons. He is from Pennsylvania, and he's the head of, let's say, our digital lexicography department. So Kelowna has, as of now, 42 dictionaries. So I colored the ones which are the main ones, one could say. As of now, 42. Last year we added some Sanskrit dictionaries, and I hope this year we add a few Sanskrit-Russian dictionaries. And 42 dictionaries is quite a lot. So as we are like a small group of people, we cannot handle 42 dictionaries at once. And even those 8 main dictionaries we can hardly handle. The best markup is, of course, in Monet-Williams, because it's already like almost 30 years since the work started. But I hope that in my lifetime we'll succeed in having at least Bertling and Aptis dictionaries at the same level of markup. And maybe in 10 years from now, Vachaspatiam and Shabdakalpadruma, they are really, really dirty. That means that what's done in the middle of 19th century, we are not able to replicate. I don't speak about adding new features, that's something I'll speak later. We are not able to reproduce what was done in the middle of the 19th century. That's why I say that we are stuck in the middle of the 19th century. So the lexicons, they are stuck. Like 200 years ago, we've not made any drastical improvements in the two centuries coming after. So we are bad in reproducing those books because we have hundreds and thousands of new mistakes that were not in the original books. We have not split out the Samasa entries from, for example, Petersburger Wörterbuch. We have not found out all the Sopasarga dhatus, which is like quite hard, which are quite hard to find now. If you want to, let's say, find something like agam, that would be not that easy because we don't have a full list of everything possible in birthing, for example. So the problem is that we are in a very bad condition still after 30 years after we started. But the good news is that we have found quite a few errors in the original books as well. So nowadays, if you print a Sanskrit textbook, you would have like, let's say, 50, 100 mistakes. If it's not a German book, in German books you don't have mistakes. But if it's a non-German book on Sanskrit, it can contain up to 700 mistakes per book. In the old days, on Monet Williams, there are 200,000 entries, and it contains like only a bunch, 50, 100 mistakes, the real book mistakes, which means it's done in such a way, nobody works in such a way nowadays, even though we are superior in the technical aspect, but we are worse in every other aspect. So what I want to say is that we try to make a step forward and to add something that was not in the initial dictionaries when we treat the digital ones. So for example, there is an interface I believe not all of you are aware of. On the homepage, I'll show a little bit later, there is a mode which was invented by me. It's called the simple input. So this is the game changer. This is what actually I believe people should be aware of. So in this case, you don't see what actually value it adds, but I hope the other screenshots will show. So we have MD, which means McDonald Dictionary, which is like a small one, not very useful maybe still. It has a lot of samasas. So you see that all these entries are reproducing what we had in the original book, and you have to find Ativatsala, but you will not have Ativatsala, Vallabha, you will not be able to find it as a whole world right now. So what we're trying to do is to make it findable, which means there is a lot of voluntary work involved. So we have a few students like from Russia helping, 2 students from India and 1 student from France. Like on an everyday basis, they try to clean out the dirt. And there's a lot of it. So for example, we have like 8,000 such entries that could be made out of those sub-headwords that are integrated in the dictionary, but are not yet seen. So what we try to do is sometimes mechanically unite all those headwords with those possible samasa derivations, and like Ati Vatsala is great, Ati Vallabha is great, but then if we do like Ati Vatsalatva, then we get in trouble. So there are issues and there are solutions if we work together. So the 5 Sanskrit Russian dictionaries I was speaking about are these. I have digitized them myself for the last, like, let's say 10 years. It's all we have, nothing more. For example, the first one, like 1854 is Kasovich, which is a Russian translation of Wilson, which is rather interesting because you can read it as a poem of Russian language, because nobody doesn't speak that Russian nowadays, so you can read it just as like a poem, even though maybe it's not perfect, as Wilson is not perfect. But Wilson, for example, contains etymological entries that are not available in any other Sanskrit English dictionary. So the etymological entries that Wilson contains, and Wilson is 1832, which is like 200 years ago, still it has some parts of the dictionary that are not, in any other dictionary, they are not made more, bigger, better than they were in the original Wilson dictionary. And what I really like is that in 2007, so when I first tried to put out the Sanskrit dictionary scans in 2005, I was like, I got copyright issues from those libraries from where I scanned those books. So I I was treated like a thief. That I'm bringing the dictionaries to the wild net, and I was like, somebody should stop the guy, and they tried to stop me. They tried to put down the dictionaries. So when I put them on the archiver, they tried to do everything they can just not to let them out. And it was like where I started. So I was hunted for the dictionaries. And slowly it started to change. And what I really like about Kalogna, that we are the standard for openness as of now, because everything is on the back end, visible on the GitHub link I showed you before. Yeah, so, right. One of the things I would really like to have at Kalogna, but most probably will never have, is, for example, the Keva. But Keva, I scanned myself, and when Meyerhofer was still alive, I got his permission to put it out online. So we have Keva actually, and we have Eva as well, but it's not publicly available. So what that means, there are the Leiden dictionaries. My Devanagari got broken, but okay. The Kupa Manduka I wanted to speak about, like that some institutes have some great libraries. The Leiden one is a great one, but they remain so proprietary, so closed, that I really don't understand why should we reinvent the wheel. Like I know in 2005, I know that they had all that Keva scan, recognized, available inside their intranet, and then I understand I have to do the thing once again, once more, and it's like, yeah, we have so many sensitivities, like they can do a few things every few years. They can do once again a new scanning of dictionary that takes hundreds, thousands of hours actually to get it there, and still we spend those resources because they are the proprietary systems. And they are the open ones, and I'm the open guy. So they have those dictionaries online, but they are available, they're not really available for the Sanskritist, other than the one who sits in a library. So Brill is like something I would not want to do in the sphere of Sanskrit lexicography. So it's subscription based. They got those dictionaries available in a non-combined way only like 2 years ago, which is like kind of strange. For example, they added Gellner's and Griffith's translation like 1 year ago. I had them online 11 years ago, openly. So I mean, I'm a bit like ahead of the time, and that sometimes brings me to trouble. So Kalogna is free and not subscription based. It was always individually dictionaries available, and we had those Rig Veda translation parts inside, hyperlinked from the dictionary to the corpora like 10 years ago. So nothing actually they have in Leiden that we don't have ourselves. So this is the edition of my compilation of Rig Veda. I did it like 11 years ago. So if there is a Rig Veda quote from Monet Williams, from Bertling Dictionary, from Grassmann's Wörterbuch, you can actually get to this quote. So you don't have to trust nobody. You can check what actually it should state. For example, in Russian, you don't have to do foolish work of inventing something that's done better before you. So what I really believe is that although I am in the field of artificial intelligence since 1999, I believe that if we unite volunteer work and the possibilities of artificial intelligence, then 40 years from now, if 40 people work on an everyday basis on these dictionaries, 8 main dictionaries, we can clean out the dirt in 40 years from now. If 40 people for 40 years will work on them. So it's a huge amount of work. I mean, lots of issues, but it's done once before in the history of humankind. So in Oxford, they did it like 150 years ago. So they understood that however smart you are, you cannot do it all on your own. You have to invite people, volunteers, and that is my mission, to find volunteers from the world to continue the development, not only the replication as we are doing as of now, but the development of the dictionaries. We've done a Russia-born Sanskrit search engine. It's an offline tool. It works like 22 seconds, and for example, for one search, and you can find every single quote from the corpora which I have compiled, which is quite big. Like we started with the Rig Veda like 11 years ago, then we did Atharva Veda, now we've finalized Mahabharata and the first 3 kandas of Ramayana, and we have Gita, we have Bhartrihari, Amarushataka, Rakshuvamsha, and like 30 different smaller and bigger works there in this engine. Yeah, so I mean, there is no other Sanskrit search engine actually working outside as of now, only ORS is. So this is an example of a result page. So I was searching for Jala. That means there might be some false friends here in the list, and still it speeds up me drastically. So I am guiding the Russian translation of the Ramayana. So we have published the first 3 kandas of Ramayana. The 4th one is translated and not yet published. The 5th one is translated as well, not published as well. And now we are on the 6th kanda, and I hope in 10 years we can get to the 7th kanda as well. So this Sanskrit search engine is used on an everyday basis for a real translation. And nothing of such kind I've seen in the German part, in the English part of the internet. So why I believe we can find volunteers? We have the best looking girls in our team. So that means some men at least should be interested in cooperating with us. Because if Sanskrit is not attractive enough, then we have to use whatever we have, and we have the best girls around. So we are now in a mode we have to choose what we concentrate on. We cannot do all at once. So is it the data correction, or is it the functions and the usability that should be, most attention should be paid off? So right now, I am like the garbage man. I collect garbage. I come and weed out the dirt. So that's what we're doing right now. I am trying to find as many mistakes as possible to make the dictionaries actually look better and contain less errors in the mostly Sanskrit words. So in 2014, I tried to compile a full list of all known Sanskrit words in the Sanskrit dictionaries. So at the time, I was aware of 375,000 words. That's the biggest list of Sanskrit word index you can get. So after 10 years, we have increased to 393,000 words. That all those 42 dictionaries compiled give a list of 393,000 words. And the point is that every other website containing something Sanskrit kind of list of words is based on Cologne. On whatever stage, maybe 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 20. And the problem is that how did Bertling understand that Monier Williams was a copycat? How did he understood that? How did Bertling understood that Monier is just copying his dictionary? Do you know the story in the preface, what he writes about it?
He saw his mistakes were copied.
Yes. So that it's the best way to find if you were copied, because nobody knows your mistakes better than yourself. That means that yeah, he did, and he wrote an article. He wrote it in a preface, and then there were a few articles printed lately exploring those mistakes. That was like a small sample of around 50 mistakes. But actually, doing digital kind of studies, I see many more, and actually we could show it on a broad scale what actually happened. So